Video games are often extended adventures. Every game is a journey, specific and special to the individual that plays the game. Many times games are designed with moments that are universally intended to evoke the same reaction from all of its players, whether it is triumph, frustration, sadness, or even fear and disgust. We'll explore that last set of emotions with a variety of 15 gameplay experiences that will make you say, "Finally, I'm out of here, and I don't want to return." We'll ask you to return if only briefly. And for newcomers to the games listed here, you may find yourself returning in your own playthrough. The entire level of PT. PT will forever be one of the most famous flash-in-the-pan moments in gaming. Meant to evoke games like Silent Hill, it was horrific and bewildering, confusing in its sense of repetition, but still alienating because the structure of the game seemed not linear. It created a feeling of continuous unpredictability, one that lasted until the game was completed. If you could complete it, without the prevailing dread or the game's mysteries presenting themselves as insurmountable roadblocks. Mr. X sections in Resident Evil 2 2019. Already making the rounds in social media, the recently released remake of Resident Evil 2 sought to both recapture and recreate the definition of horror for game players. And if segments routinely expressed here are any indication, the developers have certainly succeeded. Mr. X is a tyrant and a top hat who stalks Leon or Claire during different moments in their playthroughs. He is invincible when you encounter him, attacking him only serves to delay him. His persistent presence can feel as much draining as it does frightening. You must evade this monstrosity. The Hunter sections, Dead Space. If you have not played Dead Space before, seeing a hunter must make you think, wow, that is seriously gross. A mass of muscle and raw flesh, it's all revolting. And the hunter stalks you throughout certain parts of the first Dead Space. The worst part is that you may think you've taken care of the hunter throughout your playthrough of the game until you see it again. Its apparently inability to die or be ditched is as much frustrating as it is scary, as if fearing for your life as a result of the rest of the game's threats wasn't already enough. Valley of Defilement, Demon Souls. While stalking sequences in games are great examples of individual moments that create memorable experiences for players, it is equally effective to design repulsive environments that elicit feelings of revulsion. Such is the case within the Valley of Defilement in Demon Souls, full of rot and decay and poison. The awkward craftsmanship of the bridges have spiked ends, creating a feeling of uncomfortability all around you. It is the perfect home for the hideous depraved ones and its giant rats, and the same has to be said for the unspeakably horrid leechmonger boss. Every Cave, The Forest. Indie title The Forest is an open-world survival horror game where players are placed on a remote island and given little direction about progress and survival. The island, already creepy with foreboding arrangements of dense forestry, is filled with cannibalistic mutants. Worse, well, the caves found on the island are usually pitch black. You're lucky if you see light sources that aren't your own. The purpose of any of the caves, aided by the structure of the game itself, is to create a very disorienting and all-encompassing sense of fear, unaware of what to expect. Survival only is possible guaranteed by venturing forward and fighting with smarts, though the game does allow players some flexibility to proceed as they choose. AGROPROM Underground, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Shadow of Chernobyl. Are you afraid of the dark? Do you hate narrow and enclosed spaces? Bothered by the idea of dealing with such enemies as ones that are sometimes invisible, can quickly teleport, slash at you with claws, and, well, look hideous? Then the AGROPROM Underground is probably not for you. And if this listed traits doesn't bother you, then just keep an eye and ear out for surprise gunfire from enemies, even as you do your best to carefully maneuver through the level. Laura's encounter in Chapter 10, The Evil Within. The Laura boss fight is well set up. Leading up to your first encounter with her in Chapter 10, you have already seen her before, but as you travel downward through the same room that houses her, you can see Laura crawling around the inner circle of fencing in the room. Once you throw the lever, she breaks through the fencing. Laura will now tail you as you try to make your way forward, even as you deal with doors taking forever to open and windows crashing and enemies standing in your way. While this encounter can be handled multiple of ways, it can be debilitating to deal with many obstacles at once, and that's certainly what you should expect to be dealing with in this part of the game. Sewers of Imperial City, Star Wars Shadow of the Empire. Sewers aren't great to hang out in, unless you're the Ninja Turtles, but this dark and dank location is gross to navigate, just as it is for the rest of us, and all of the other creepiness is nothing compared to the giant Dianoga that is encountered in the stage. A frighteningly large version of the underwater spider-like monsters that are encountered leading up to this fight. Star Wars has featured more than one grotesque monster in its lifetime, but this certainly has to rank up there as far as unsettling creations for this universe. The Dunwich Building, Fallout 3. Formerly an office building, it is now populated by feral ghouls. The audio logs here describe people as the radiation transforms them into ghouls as well. The journey through the place is heavy on atmosphere, while the enemies and the ruin of the facility can tell a story of a creepy location by itself. This is an example of a sense of horror being bolstered through Fallout's audio logs, a story of a once functional civilization as it falls apart into disrepair, much like the building. The severed body found while exploring, well, that certainly adds to the journey. KENNELS, Penumbra Black Plague. The kennels are incredibly creepy. As you progress, you keep trying to anticipate danger, waiting for an enemy to strike. Watch out for Wilbur, who will try to strike you if you stay in the darkness. As you move forward, you hear creepy growling and howling noises, and the paranoia escalates. You'll find dead dogs and a dead human too. At times, you're moving through pitch blackness, if only briefly. This segment, much like the rest of the game, capitalizes on the paranoia of anticipating danger and being at best loosely aware of what that danger is. First encounter with Descendants, Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Isn't Uncharted supposed to be a colorful and fun adventure series, much like Indiana Jones, but with a much more affable protagonist? Well, you wouldn't think so if you ran into the Descendants from Uncharted Drake's Fortune. The game has been alluding to the cannibalistic zombie-like creatures leading up to this encounter, and in the tunnels in which they are found, the tension builds to their ultimate reveal. A surprise capture of one victim as he is dragged down to be slashed apart. In person, they are hideous and terrifying, and when you encounter them, you have to fend off many. Be sure to go ahead and learn more about these monsters because the backstory is interesting. Seat of the Matriarch, ASHEN. Had enough of being attacked in tight quarters by enemies and using limited light, if at all, to navigate? Well, then try all of that in open spaces. Darkness can be effective in enclosed areas to make you feel less empowered, but dealing with a seemingly infinitely stretching abyss can give the feeling of overwhelming darkness. Are you really making any progress if you just keep moving forward with darkness around you? Well, thankfully, it's not completely pitch black throughout, but it's a creepy journey nonetheless. Reaper IFF Mission, Mass Effect 2. In Mass Effect 2, the Reaper IFF mission culminates in a boss battle against the Reaper Core, which would be straightforward were it not for the zombie-like husks that repeatedly swarm you as you try to take it down. Individually, they're not so bad, but you're not fighting against only one husk here. Zombies are creepy enough, but the design of the husks are creepy because they reflect their synthetic nature. It's unsettling as it is annoying. Chapter 7, Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. The Fatal Frame games are excellent. You are harassed by ghosts who behave and attack almost like zombies do. You don't fight with firearms but with a camera, and to effectively do damage, your shots must be well taken. Your protagonists aren't acrobats or stunt people, but normal humans. You're not very powerful, to say the least. One memorable segment from Fatal Frame 2 is Chapter 7, in which you are frequently tailed by the evil spirit, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. You've already lost your camera and flashlight before the chapter starts, leaving you with no choice but to flee for much of the chapter. You do get both items back later, thankfully. True Lab, Undertale. The place itself isn't incredibly scary, but the various lab entries from Alphys are a large part of what creates a pervasive, unsettling feeling. They talk of experiments to extract determination, the will to live after dying, from human souls, and the creation of amalgamates, which are monsters infused with determination to an uncontrollable degree, thus resulting in, well, to say the least, a mutated form. They are incredibly unsettling to behold. And that concludes our list of gameplay sequences that you'll be relieved to finally complete. It is a list of uncomfortable experiences of all types, but nevertheless, there aren't many who want the experience to linger. If anything, there's definitely something rewarding about triumphing over a difficult or creepy game segment. Let us know if there are any game moments or segments that you are happy to finally complete and never play again due to their unsettling nature. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.